I almost ignored the message. It arrived 3 minutes before boarding, from my own number.
The airport had that stale, pressurized smell, burnt coffee beans and recycled oxygen. I remember that clearly, probably because it was the last thing that felt normal before the world started to tilt. I was standing at gate 27, white-knuckling a one-way ticket to Lisbon. New job, new life. The kind of brave move people toast you for at happy hour while secretly thanking God it's not them. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a safe travels text from my mom, but the caller ID didn't make sense. It wasn't a contact name. It was my name, my photo, my own number. The preview read, "Don't get on that plane." My brain immediately went to glitch, some weird network loop or a spoofing scam. I opened the thread, my thumb hovering over the screen. There was a second message. "You won't land where you think." I checked the timestamp, sent at 2:14 p.m. It was 2:17 now, 3 minutes ago. I tried to scroll up, looking for a history, anything, but there was nothing. No hi, no test. Just those two warnings sitting there like a death threat. "Boarding for Flight 482 to Lisbon has now begun," the PA system crackled. Around me, the terminal shifted into motion. Suitcase wheels rattled over the floor tiles, zippers clicked, but I stayed glued to the carpet. I typed back, my hands shaking just enough to make me hit the wrong keys twice. "Who is this?" The gray bubbles appeared instantly. They pulsed, stopped, pulsed again. Then, "You wrote this. Tomorrow." The air in my lungs felt thin. Beneath the text was an attachment, a photo. I tapped it, and my stomach did a slow, nauseating roll. It was a picture of this exact gate, gate 27, but it was pitch black. The terminal was empty, the lights were cut, and the digital board above the desk didn't show boarding. It showed one word in jagged red letters, "Canceled." The timestamp on the photo? Tomorrow's date. I looked up, blinking. The world was still loud. A toddler was screaming 3 seats away. A guy near the bin was aggressively chewing gum. It was also ordinary. Then the phone buzzed one last time. "He's watching you." I didn't want to look. Every instinct told me to keep my eyes on my shoes, but I turned, slowly. Across the terminal, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, was a man. He didn't have a carry-on. He didn't have a jacket. He was just standing there, silhouetted against the gray runway. He wasn't looking at the planes. He was looking at me. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. He didn't look embarrassed. He just offered a small, knowing smile, like he'd been waiting for me to catch up. "If you board, you disappear." "Final boarding call for Flight 482 to Lisbon," the agent called out. I had 10 seconds to decide if I was having a psychotic break or if this was the last normal minute of my life. I didn't board. My body made the call before my brain could even process the why. As the line shuffled forward, the rhythmic beep, beep, beep of the gate scanner sounded like a countdown. I took a step back, then another. I saw the man by the window tilt his head just a fraction. He looked amused, like he was watching a scripted play and I'd just missed my cue. My phone buzzed. Good. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard it hurt. I turned and bolted, not a run, but a fast, jagged walk toward the restrooms, desperate for a door I could lock. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed with a sickly yellow buzz. I ducked into a stall, bolted the latch, and stared at my phone like it was a live grenade. No weird apps, no remote desktop icons, nothing. I checked my sent folder, empty. No record of the warnings I'd just received. I pulled up the photo of the dark gate again and pinched to zoom. That's when I saw her.
In the reflection of the terminal glass, there was a woman, blurry, washed out. She was holding a phone. She was wearing my exact jacket. I stopped breathing, because in the reflection, right behind her shoulder, was a hand, a man's hand reaching out. On the wrist was a distinct geometric tattoo, black ink, sharp lines, like a broken compass. The restroom door creaked open. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed on the tile. Tap, tap, tap. I pulled my feet up on the toilet seat, shrinking into the corner of the stall. "You forgot something," a voice said. It wasn't a shout. It was calm, rehearsed, a soft, gravelly rasp that made the hair on my arms stand up. I looked through the gap under the door. Dark sneakers. They stopped right in front of my stall. My phone vibrated in my palm. "Don't respond to him." "Your flight," the man said gently, rapping his knuckles against the metal door. Knock, knock. "They're about to close the doors. Ma'am, you okay in there?" He sounded like a concerned stranger. It was a perfect performance. My phone buzzed again. "He needs you on that plane." "Let's not make this complicated." The voice dropped an octave, losing the concerned citizen act. Then the PA system bled through the walls. "Gate 27 is now closed. Flight 482 is no longer boarding." The silence that followed was heavy. The sneakers stayed put for a heartbeat, then slowly turned and walked away. The restroom door swung shut with a dull thud. I waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. When I finally stumbled back out into the terminal, my knees felt like water. I looked toward the gate and the breath left my lungs. The boarding area was dark. The lights had been cut. The digital display above the desk didn't say "departed." In jagged, flickering red letters, it read, "Canceled." There were no mechanics, no frustrated passengers, just a dead gate. "That's unfortunate," a voice whispered right against my ear. I spun around. He was standing so close I could smell the peppermint on his breath. The man from the window. He wasn't smiling anymore. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small navy blue booklet. My passport. "Looks like you're not flying today," he said softly. "Which is lucky, because I've already booked us a car." My brain stalled. My passport was sitting in his hand like it had always lived there. He held it casually, with a terrifying kind of ownership. "You dropped this," he said. His voice was smooth, like expensive leather. "I hadn't. I never drop my passport. It stays in the zippered internal pocket of my jacket, always." My hand flew to my chest. The zipper was down. The pocket was a cold, empty void. "How did you?" My voice cracked, sounding small even to me. "You seemed distracted," he said. He didn't look cruel. He looked certain. Around us, the terminal was a hive of low-level chaos. People grumbled at the gate agents. A janitor buffed the floors. Nobody was looking at the woman losing her mind in front of a smiling stranger. He held the passport out, but his fingers didn't relax their grip. Travel is unpredictable, he mused, especially when the plan evolves. My phone buzzed. He saw my eyes flick down. "You should check that," he whispered. "Might be important." I looked. 2 messages, back to back. "He needs your identity. Do not let him scan that passport." I looked up. Behind him, at the edge of the darkened gate, a portable check-in scanner sat on a pedestal. He followed my gaze and nodded. Since the flight's been scrubbed, they're rebooking a select group through a private charter. Smaller plane, leaves from the secondary runway in 20 minutes. He leaned in closer. I could see the fine lines around his eyes. "I can get you on it. You weren't supposed to stay here." The words felt like a physical weight. My phone vibrated again. "There is no charter. He's recruiting." Recruiting? For what? The canceled flight? The dark gate? The tattoo? It wasn't a glitch, it was a filter, a selection process, and I had almost walked right into the funnel. "I think I'll handle my own rebooking," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I reached for the passport. For a heartbeat, he didn't let go. His grip tightened just enough to bruise the paper. Then he snapped his hand back with a pleasant, hollow smile. "Of course, take your time." I walked to the nearest official counter, my heart a frantic drumbeat. "I heard there's a partner charter?" I asked the agent. She didn't even look up from her screen. "No charter, hun. All Lisbon flights are grounded. Fleet-wide mechanical inspection. Internal sensors on the 482s are throwing ghost codes." Ghost codes. I turned back. The man was 20 feet away, staring at his own phone, typing. My pocket buzzed instantly. "Check the news, now." I opened a news app. Nothing. Then I refreshed. A headline blinked into existence. "Emergency landing attempt reported for private charter departing secondary runway. Timestamp. Right now." I looked at the man. His eyes widened just a fraction. The mask slipped. For the first time, he looked confused. Not at the crash, but at the fact that I was standing here, watching him, instead of being on that burning plane. He slowly pocketed his phone and looked at me. The charming stranger was gone. "Well," his voice dropped to a low, dangerous hum. "That complicates the timeline." The terminal wasn't loud anymore. It was vibrating. It was that specific electric kind of chaos that happens when 1,000 people read the same headline at once. Emergency landing attempt. Private charter. Secondary runway. People around me were gasping, clutching their phones. Someone nearby whispered, "That's the small jet that just took off." I didn't move. Neither did he. For the first time, the man's mask slipped. It wasn't confidence on his face anymore. It was disruption. He was recalculating, trying to rewrite the script in real time. "You look pale," his voice regaining that oily smoothness. "Are you sure you're okay?" "You told me there was a partner charter," I said. My voice didn't shake. "You lied." He countered. His eyes darted to my phone. I looked down. 2 messages were waiting. He didn't expect resistance. He expected compliance. "Ask him about 14A." I stepped into his personal space, close enough to see the pulse thrumming in his neck. What was so special about seat 14A? His jaw tightened. A flicker of genuine alarm crossed his eyes. "You chose it," he snapped. "No," I whispered. "It was assigned. Front left, window, right over the fuel line." My phone vibrated with a long, steady pulse. I didn't even have to look. I just knew. The plane was never meant to crash. It was meant to vanish. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The mechanical inspection that grounded the fleet wasn't an accident. It was a funnel. They created a vacuum, then offered a charter as the only way out. Unregistered, no public manifest, no paper trail. He wasn't a recruiter. He was a filter. He was looking for people traveling alone, people whose disappearance wouldn't trigger an immediate alarm. A legal erasure. "You weren't saving me," I said, my voice hollow. "You were deleting me." "You're overthinking this," he said, but he was already backing away. His eyes shifted toward the terminal entrance. 2 airport security officers were moving through the crowd, looking at a tablet and adjusting their earpieces. I realized then, if future me was sending these messages, then an investigation had eventually happened. They had traced the signal. They had found the pattern. I wasn't just saving myself, I was providing the evidence they needed to catch him. The man's phone chirped in his pocket. He pulled it out, and for the first time, I saw real fear on his face. He looked at the screen, then at me, then at the approaching officers. "You should be careful," he hissed, his voice no longer calm. "You have no idea who is actually holding that phone." He didn't run, that would have been too obvious. He simply turned and melted into the crowd of panicked travelers. By the time the officers reached the gate, he was gone, a shadow swallowed by the terminal. My phone gave one last soft vibrate. You changed it. Thank you. I watched the thread vanish. The messages deleted themselves one by one until the screen was blank. No history, no sender, as if I'd been talking to a ghost. A security officer tapped my shoulder. "Ma'am, you all right? You were standing near a person of interest." I looked out the window. In the distance, on the secondary strip, emergency lights were strobing against the gray sky. The charter hadn't crashed. It had been intercepted. A navigation failure had forced it down before it could reach whatever dark corner of the world it was headed for. "I'm fine," I said, my voice finally steady. I didn't get on the wrong plane." I flew out the next morning. Different airline, different gate. No messages, no watchers. Just the boring, beautiful reality of a normal flight. But as I sat in my new seat, 32C, far from the wing, I didn't turn my phone off. I just held it, listening to the hum of the engines, waiting for a buzz that never came.